What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with with that being said, man, I want to speak on the recent comments that Luka Doncic made regarding Charles Barkley. After the game, I think it was the game that they lost to the Celtics. I think it was the game they lost to the Celtics, where they asked Luka Doncic what how would he do against Charles Barkley, and would he cook Charles Barkley? And Luka said, yeah, he would definitely cook Charles Barkley, right? And so, like the minute I heard that, I was like, man, I hope that Luka Doncic really don't feel like that. I hope that he really don't believe that he will cook LeBron James. I mean, cook Charles Barkley, right? And the reason why I say that is, number one, that would show that Luka Doncic really don't have a grasp of the history of NBA basketball, right? And like how really good guys like Charles Barkley were back when they played in their day. Like like if you go back and you watch Charles Barkley highlights, nothing that Charles Barkley did for us like blocking shots, rebounding, uh filling the lane on a fast break and coming down and just dunking on everybody. None of that Luka is he not even capable of that physically, right? That's number one. Then number two, I think that like if Luka think that he would be able to beat Charles Barkley, both of them in their prime, he's delusional, right? I think what these basketball players need to do is focus on really getting better instead of comparing themselves to the last generation. The only way you can compare yourself is just try to dominate in your era with your generation. And that's just not something that Luka Doncic is doing right now. Luka Doncic, the Mavericks traded him, to the Lakers. Like, and for him to be a franchise ball player, like who trades away their who trades away their franchise ball player, and a guy who has not even really reached his prime. So once the Mavericks done that, they traded away Luka, a guy in his front. Whether you believe that it was a big mistake or not, there had to be a reason, something that Luka showed them or didn't show them that they felt confident enough that they were not making a mistake, whereas though they got rid of Luka. And so I thought that when Luka, once they did that to Luka, this was going to be motivation for Luka, to step his game up, turn into the best basketball player that he could possibly be, so he could have, had the career that people think or thought that he would have. But I haven't seen that. I just still see Luka complaining to referees. I see Luka not playing defense, mainly and only just focusing on the offensive side of the game. Like, and like Luka is offensively is one of one. I never seen anybody who could who is as talented. You don't see too many people that's as talented as Luka on the offensive end. But when Luka don't play any defense, and then everybody around the league, all of his peers know it, you don't have to really stop Luka. If Luka scores 30 points, best believe he gonna give up 30, at least 31 on most nights. That's why the Lakers are not successful with Luka being their primary go-to scorer, because Luka plays absolutely no defense. And it's so hard to hide Luka when you have a 41-year-old, LeBron James. So when I see Luka laughing and joking and saying that he will cook Charles Barkley, the joke, in my opinion, is more so on Luka than it is anybody else. You know, and if Luka is not careful, in my opinion, he's going to wind up going from being a potential Hall of Fame basketball player to being like a journeyman in the league. I don't even think, like, in a few years, I think the Lakers in a few years will be ready to move off of Luka. And that's because the NBA is going back to playing a style whereas though is a more competitive style, meaning that you're going to have to be competitive at both ends. And you're starting to see that with the Boston Celtics play really good defense. New York Knicks play really good defense. Detroit Pistons play really good defense. And they are in the East, right? Cleveland, I think, is a good defensive team. Then when you go over to the West, the Spurs are a really good defensive team. OKC is a good defensive team. Denver with the Joker is a good defensive team. Let me see. The Rockets are a really good defensive team. And so now you're seeing they're going back to that, like how basketball it won't be exactly like what they were in the 80s, but they're going back to that. And the reason you could tell is you're starting to see more fights, right? And it's because the game is becoming more physical and is more competitive. That's number one. When you see teams are starting to move off of players that don't know how to play their position, like Trae Young. Trae Young he's a one-dimensional basketball player. He can play and he can score, but he don't really bring much else to the team. So he's a one-dimensional basketball player. Same thing with Ja Morant. Ja Morant is a one-dimensional basketball player. And the NBA don't have to really accept that. Like guys like that, those guys are going to wind up, if they're lucky enough to stay in the league, they're going to be journeymen or they're going to get shipped off to teams like where Trae is now, like to the Wizards. When the last time the Wizards have ever won anything? So it's just, I just see that the NBA is just becoming more competitive and you're going to have to play at both ends. And if you can't play at both ends, you will be lucky to be a journeyman. I can see Luka being on a team in the next 3 years or so, whereas though he is something like a sixth man or seventh man, like a sharpshooter. And people might think that that's crazy, but if you think about it, with the way that the NBA has been playing over the last few years, ratings have gone down. Attendance has gone down. So the fans, the American fans, are not really happy with the style of basketball or the quality of play that they're putting out there, right? And they don't have to put it out. They don't have to put that out there. You have enough basketball players, foreign-born and American-born basketball players that can play up to the level that the NBA needs them to play up to, whereas though the fans would be happy. So the NBA don't have to, or no longer have to, if they even felt like they have to, leave money on the table. So, and what I mean by leaving money on the table is they don't have to settle for somebody like Luka who only is going to play one side of the ball. They don't have to settle for guards who just shoot, scoring guards and don't get the rest of their players, their teammates involved in the game. They don't have to do that no more because there's enough talent around the league, and the league is going back to, is going to be more competitive like it was back, in the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. That those days are phasing out. There's enough talent coming from all over the globe, whereas though these guys can just, you got Victor Wembanyama. Where's he from? Like France or something? So and this guy, he could possibly be the face of the league. Who else a foreign basketball player? You got Shea Gilgris. I think Shea is from Canada. I don't know where the Joker is from, but like I said, there's enough talent. Whereas though you don't have to just settle for a guy who flops. You have to settle for a guy who look more so for the calls and give up baskets on one end because he's down the other end arguing with a ref. You know, you don't have to do that. The NBA realized they don't have to do that. The fans have been crying out for a while. And now guys like Luka, man, I think they're gonna become extinct. They're gonna phase themselves out of the game because they are not playing basketball the way now. I don't know about like foreign markets, but I do know like a lot of people over here not really pleased with the quality of the play, and as far as in the United States, I would think that the foreign markets probably are not as pleased, you know, as the people here in the United States, but definitely there's more money to be made. You're leaving money on the table if you allow guys like Luca to just play, to sell us a subpar product. And so I don't think the league is going to continue to go that way. I think guys who don't play a more competitive style of basketball at both ends are going to get phased out. So nowhere in the world the NBA would have been able to phase Charles Barkley out with the way he played basketball at both ends. So when Luca laughed and say that he would have cooked Charles Barkley, he might have been saying it, he may have just been joking with him, but he got to get serious. He really need to get serious if he wants to have a long career. If he don't want to be, playing for 6 teams throughout his career, which I think, like I said, the Lakers are going to, if he don't get it together, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers within the next 2 years or so, 2 or 3 years, move off of Luka. I think it's probably going to be 2, but it might take 3 years for the Lakers to move off of Luka. So that's my take. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out on the next video. Peace.